Hey, what's up? You're watching The Sit Down. I'm DJ Sixsmith. Andrew Rannells is here with us. Got a brand new season of Black Monday coming back to Showtime. What's up, man? How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing really well. Very excited that this show is returning. And listen, it's been a good one for you. And people know your stuff from Broadway. They've seen your stuff on TV, but this is a big old platform to do it. So, what has this experience been like for you so far?
It's been a real wild ride. I was super drawn to the show from the second that I read that first script because it's not only a really hilarious comedy with really hard jokes, which is not hard jokes meaning like very clear jokes, like here's a joke, we're setting it up, which is not. It feels like a very '80s throwback, which is really fun to get to do, but it's also incredibly serialized in a way that a lot of half-hour comedies are not, and we always follow some sort of very sort of strict plot line. And this year season three is very exciting because we get to do a big murder mystery. It's a high body count on Black Monday this year with a lot of very unexpected characters getting offed at very unexpected times. So that was an additional challenge and a lot of fun to get to play this sort of clue-like murder mystery, in addition to getting to do all of our very silly Black Monday things that we usually get to do.
And how nice is it just to be able to have some laughs given everything that's happened in the world the past year and a half, right? Just to be able to actually have a laugh for once in a while, right?
Yeah, it felt really, really great to get back to the set and to get back to this cast. And as things started to shut down last year, last March, we were in the process of promoting our second season and had, we had all of these interviews lined up and talk shows and all of that. And then obviously all of that went away. So it feels especially good right now to get back on the set and get to be, back in these crazy costumes with these people. Now knowing we're getting closer to being on the other side of all of that.
You've played a lot of interesting characters in your day. How would you describe Blair, and when do you feel like you really got a sense of who he is?
Um, Blair, in a lot of ways, reminded me a lot of Elder Price, which is the character I got to play in the Book of Mormon on Broadway now 10 years ago. And there was something really sort of naive and optimistic and very earnest about him that I enjoyed. But then we got to take Blair to some very dark places, and Blair's personality shifts pretty drastically throughout the first season, and then again all throughout the second season. And now in the third season, we find him with a whole new career path. He's a congressman. He finds himself sort of at the bottom rung of Congress, and he's fighting his way to make a name for himself in that arena. And things get pretty dark pretty quickly for old Blair. Yeah.
The 80s were a pretty wacky time. What stands out to you about doing a show set in this time in the 80s and early 90s?
Well, it was such a time of insane excess. So that, of course, is really fun to get to play with. It's certainly a cautionary tale because it did not end very well for a lot of those people who were living very excessively in the '80s. But now being on the other side of that, it is fun um, to get to at least pretend to be a part of that generation of huge excess. And these characters are all in many ways larger than life in their personal choices and professional choices. So as an actor, that's always fun to get to play somebody who, especially for Blair, who's sort of he's not. I don't think that he's a bad guy. I think he's very optimistic in that he thinks that he's making the right decisions sometimes, but it doesn't always take him to the best places.
Well, one person who's a good guy, and there's no debate about it, is Don Cheadle, and he's obviously one of the coolest dudes in Hollywood. He's had a great career.
Yes.
What do you think makes him so special, both on camera and off camera, in your opinion?
Don has such a well, he's incredibly intelligent, and just he's such a not only is this such a great actor, but he's also a really wonderful producer. And it's been such an education to get to work very closely with him and starting to see how that side of his brain works when we're talking about production and we're talking about script development. And so I've really learned a lot from him and watching him develop these stories and just how his mind works as a producer. And I just look at his body of work, and am just amazed at just the breadth of things that he has gotten to do in his career. One of my greatest achievements while shooting the pilot was getting up the nerve to ask him about the Golden Palace,
Hmm.
which was the Golden Girls spinoff that Don Cheadle was on. And I was like, I'm not going to ask him about that. That seems like it could be a real relationship killer. I'm just going to do it. I'm going to ask him about the Golden Palace. And I did. And he was so nice. And he answered all of my questions and told me some very funny stories about working with those women. So, he's had quite the career. So he's very fun to talk to about that as well.
I mean, Andrew, that's a deep cut right there. I mean, how many people are asking me about that show, right? I mean, you separated yourself right off the bat there.
Well, it was a risky move, though. It was a risky
It's
move.
true.
But
Boom or bust. It ended up working out for
I
you.
know. Yeah, it ended up being fine.
Well, you've had some great moments in your career as well. And I think one of the best parts about your career has been Broadway. And Broadway
Yeah.
is coming back finally. And Broadway has been so devastated by the pandemic. So, what's been like just seeing Broadway without any lights on, and now the fact that it will come back at some point this year?
That was really tough to be back in New York. I was there for a lot of the summer and the fall, and seeing that neighborhood so quiet, and a neighborhood that I spent the majority of my 20s and 30s working in, and having that be, all of those marquees were dark, and the restaurants and that I was used to going to, before and after the shows, and having all of that just be shut down. It definitely felt like a huge piece of New York City was missing. I think this is really great news that a lot of shows are gearing up to open in mid-September. I'll be curious to see. I'm not a part of any productions in the near future, but I'm certainly very anxious to get back to Broadway, and am hoping, that we can figure out the safest and most responsible way to do that. So I think everybody in that theater community is very much eager to see exactly how we're going to do that, and how is that all going to work.
You mentioned Book of Mormon before, and obviously that was a big one for you. You won a Grammy, you're nominated for Tony, but that one hit people right in the gut, right? They either loved it or people were, crazy against
Horrified? Yeah.
it. Horrified is definitely a way to put it. So, what do you remember at the very beginning of that experience before it blew up into such a big thing?
I think we thought that cast, as we were rehearsing it and we were getting ready to open it. We knew that we would find an audience. Um, Maybe it was going to be a small audience. Maybe it was going to be sort of a niche group of folks who were, fans of Trey and Matt's, that would come and see it. I did not expect it to be running 10 years later. I did not expect it to go on tour to Salt Lake City. Um, it was, it's had a much larger life than I could have ever possibly imagined. And because, as you said, it is sort of risky subject matter, and especially for a Broadway show, I think we took a lot of big swings in that show, but it certainly paid off. So it was a thrill to get to be a part of that. But I don't think anybody could have predicted it would be the success that it is.
So you've been on successful shows, and then you get a little Hamilton magic dust sprinkled on you when you slide in there. I mean, it's one thing to be doing Book of Mormon, but Hamilton, bends the genre, and it was such a smash at that point. So what was the craziest, wildest part of that experience for you?
The craziest part about that was when Lynn asked me to join them. It was before they opened on Broadway. They were just finishing their run at the Public Theater in New York, and I was on a waiting list to get tickets because it was so popular. No one could get in to see it, and then I got this phone call that they were asking if, after the show opened on Broadway, just a few weeks after, would I come and join them for about 5 weeks to fill in for Jonathan Groff. And I said, yeah, without ever having seen it or heard anything. I was like, yeah, I think that sounds like something I'd like to do. But do you think I could get tickets now? Is that something that can we maybe figure that out? And they got me tickets. And I got to go see it. And it was such it was 5 weeks to get to be dropped into that show. And the character that I played, King George, he's in, I think, 9 minutes total as King George, throughout a almost 3 hour long musical. So you just have these very choice moments of being dropped into this show. And it was a lot. I thought it was, so I was like, well, that's easy and I don't have to, but I was nervous every performance. I got nervous in a way that I've never been nervous on Broadway before, but the fact that I had so little to do, but and yet you're the only one on stage at that time, and I knew what a big sensation it was making. It was very stressful. It was a lot of fun, but it definitely was very stressful. Yeah.
Well, now you're a seasoned veteran, and you got season 3 of Black Monday coming up. So looking forward to that, man. Thanks so much for hanging out, and
Thanks.
we'll talk to you down
Thanks
the
so
road. All right?
much.